The wind moved across the empty land like a warning. Dry dust rolled over the broken fields and hit the old wooden fence around Daniel's farm. Nothing good had happened there for many years. Daniel stood near his tractor and looked at the sky. It was turning dark red as the sun went down. He wiped sweat from his face and checked the dry soil one more time. The ground was dead. No rain had come for months. He was tired. Every day was the same. Wake up, work hard, save what little food was left, and sleep alone in a silent house. Once, this farm had been full of life. There were green fields, warm lights, and laughter in the evenings. Now there was only wind. Daniel picked up his tools and started walking back to the house when he heard something strange. A soft sound. Not from the wind, not from the machines. It came from the fence. He stopped. His hand moved slowly to the old metal tool hanging from his belt. He did not know if it was an animal, a thief, or something worse. The sound came again. Weak footsteps, then a child's cough. Daniel moved carefully through the dust and reached the front gate. At first, he saw only shadows. Then the wind slowed, and he saw them clearly. A tall alien woman stood near the fence, holding one side of it so she would not fall. Her clothes were torn and covered in dirt. Her face looked pale and tired. Her eyes were full of pain. Behind her, 3 small children stood close together. They were thin, too thin. Their faces were weak. Their hands were shaking. The smallest child could barely stand. Daniel froze. He knew their kind. Everyone knew them. Their race had once fought in the Great War. Their ships had burned cities. Their weapons had destroyed farms, homes, and families, including his. His jaw became hard. He took one step back. The woman saw fear and anger in his eyes. She slowly raised her empty hands. She was not carrying a weapon. Then, in a weak voice, she spoke in broken human language. "I'll work your fields, human. Just feed my hungry children." The words stayed in the air. Daniel said nothing. The oldest child looked at him with wide eyes. The middle child held the smallest one close. None of them cried. They were too hungry for tears. Daniel looked at the road behind them. No ship, no guards, no bags. They had nothing. He should tell them to leave. He should close the gate. He should remember what their people had done. But then the smallest child stumbled forward and fell into the dust. The alien mother rushed down and lifted her gently. The child was so light, it looked like she was carrying only bones. Daniel felt something painful in his chest. He hated that feeling. He turned away and looked at his house. Inside was dry bread, water, and one warm room. Not much, but enough to save 3 children for one night. He looked back at the woman. "If this is a trick," he said coldly, "you chose the wrong farm." She lowered her head. "It is not a trick." Daniel opened the gate. The children stared at him in shock. The mother did not move at first, as if she could not believe it. Then she stepped forward slowly. The oldest child helped the middle one walk. The smallest child stayed in her mother's arms. Daniel pointed toward the barn. "You stay there, not in the house." The woman nodded quickly. "Thank you." He did not answer. He walked ahead of them through the dark yard. The barn was old, but it was dry and safe. He opened the door and motioned them inside. The children looked around the barn like it was a palace. Daniel left for a moment and returned with a small sack of bread and a container of water. He placed them on the floor. The children moved fast, but the mother stopped them. She broke the bread into equal pieces first. Then she gave each child a share. Only after they started eating did she take a piece for herself. Daniel noticed that. The smallest child held her bread with both hands and smiled. A tiny, weak smile. It hit Daniel harder than he expected. He quickly turned and walked to the door. "You can stay tonight," he said without looking back. "Tomorrow, we talk." Before he could leave, the oldest child spoke softly. "Thank you, human." Daniel paused. Then he closed the barn door behind him. Outside, the wind had stopped. But far above the farm, hidden behind dark clouds, a small light moved across the sky. A ship. And it was coming closer. Night covered the farm in deep silence. The red sky was gone, replaced by dark clouds and cold stars. A weak moon shined over the broken land, touching the dead fields with pale light. Inside the house, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. A small lamp burned beside him. In front of him was an old metal cup filled with cold tea. He had not touched it. His mind was not calm. Alien children were sleeping in his barn. Their mother was only a few steps away, and he had opened the gate for them. He still could not understand why. Daniel stood and looked through the dusty window toward the barn. No movement, no sound. Everything looked quiet. But his heart did not trust quiet nights. He remembered the war too well. He remembered the burning roads, the falling ships, and the screams that came after the explosions. He remembered standing in smoke while his home turned to ash. The same race had caused that. So, why had he helped one of them? He rubbed his face and tried to rest, but then he heard a strange sound, soft, like glass singing in the dark.
You think that
Daniel
shovel
froze.
can save you, boy?
The sound came from outside,
Your time
from
here
the
is
barn.
done.
He slowly reached for the
pretend
old
you're not
rifle
afraid,
hanging near the
Daniel.
door. It had
This
little
device
power
sees
left,
right through you,
but enough for one warning
just
shot.
like I do.
He stepped into the cold night and moved across the yard without noise. The sound came again, a low hum, gentle and bright. When he reached the barn wall, he noticed something strange. Light was coming through the cracks in the wood. Blue light, not fire, not a lamp. Something
All right,
else.
positions, everyone.
Daniel held his
You
breath
three,
and looked
fan out
through a
to the
narrow
east.
opening between the
Go.
boards. What he saw made him forget the rifle in his hands. The alien mother stood in the center of the barn. Her eyes were closed. Both hands were raised above the ground. Soft blue energy moved around her fingers like living water. The light flowed down into the floor, through the wood, and into the dry earth below the barn. The ground began to change. Small green shoots pushed through the dirt. Tiny leaves opened. Dead soil became dark and rich again. Daniel stared in silence. He had worked this land for years, and nothing had grown. Yet, in a few seconds, life returned where her hands touched. The three children were awake now. They sat together on a blanket and watched their mother with tired but happy faces. The smallest child clapped softly. The woman quickly lowered her hands. The light disappeared. She looked weak, almost ready to fall. The oldest child ran to support her. Daniel stepped back from the wall. His thoughts raced. She had power, real power, enough to save the fields, enough to change everything, or enough to destroy it. The barn door opened suddenly. The alien mother stood there, breathing hard.
Back.
She had felt his presence. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel lowered the rifle. "You can heal land," he said quietly. She looked down. "Yes." "Then why come here starving?" Her face filled with pain. "Because power is dangerous when others want to own it." Daniel said nothing. She slowly stepped outside and closed the door behind her so the children would not hear. "My people use gifts like this in war," she said. "Some gave life, others took life. After the war ended, many leaders wanted children with strong energy." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "The smallest one." The mother nodded. "She was born different." Daniel remembered the little girl's weak smile. "Who is chasing you?" he asked. She looked toward the sky. "Soldiers, traitors, anyone who wants power." The cold wind moved between them. Daniel did not know if he should believe her, but he had seen the ground turn green. That was no lie. "If you can grow food," he said, "why not feed your children before coming here?" Tears filled her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "Every time I use too much power, they can track us." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night, the ship above the clouds. It was not passing by. It was searching. A sudden beep broke the silence. Daniel turned. A small warning light blinked on the side of his house. Motion sensor. Something was near the road. He grabbed the rifle again and ran to the hill beside the yard.
Almost ready?
The alien mother
grab your
followed.
bags. We have
From
to
the
go
top, they looked down toward the dark path leading to the farm. Far away, lights moved through the dust. Vehicles, more than one. Daniel counted 3. They were coming straight toward his land. The mother whispered only one
Daniel,
word.
we have to go now.
"They found us." The smallest child cried out from inside the barn. The sound cut through the night. Daniel looked at the road, then at the barn, then at the frightened mother beside him. He had given them one night of shelter. Now that choice was about to cost him everything. The lights on the road grew brighter with every second. 3 dark vehicles moved through the dust like predators. Their engines were low and heavy, shaking the ground under Daniel's boots. White beams of searchlights cut across the dead fields, swept over broken fences, empty water tanks, and old farm machines. They were not lost. They were coming for the barn. Daniel stood on the hill beside the alien mother. The cold wind pushed against them, but neither moved. Inside the barn, the children were awake now. He could hear the youngest crying softly. The mother's hands trembled. "If they see us," she whispered, "they will take my daughter." Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "Who are they?" "Not my people, not yours. Men who sell war to anyone who can pay."
Get down, he's throwing it!
That answer told him enough. Mercenaries, hunters with no flag. The kind who did not care who suffered as long as someone paid them. Daniel made a quick decision. Get back inside. Stay silent. Cover the light if you use your power. She looked at him in surprise.
To the trench, hurry,
"You would
get
still
down."
help us?" He did not answer. He ran down the hill toward the house. Inside, he moved fast. He shut off every lamp, locked the front door, and opened an old metal cabinet hidden behind sacks of grain. Inside were tools from another life: batteries, wires, smoke flares, and a worn farm radio. He took what he needed. Outside, the vehicle stopped near the main gate. Doors opened. Boots hit the ground. 5 armed men stepped out, wearing black armor covered in dust. Their helmets had no marks, no names. One carried a scanner glowing blue. Their leader walked ahead and took the gate. Daniel met them halfway across the yard. He carried only a lantern and a shovel. The leader removed his helmet. He had a scar across one eye, a smile of a man who enjoyed fear. "Evening, farmer," he said. "Late visitors." Daniel kept his face empty. "Then visit quickly." The men laughed. The leader looked around the yard. "We are tracking illegal movement, alien refugees, a female, and 3 children." Daniel shrugged. "Only rats and bad weather here." The scanner man stepped forward. He pointed the device toward the barn. A weak signal blinked. Daniel's heart tightened. The leader noticed. "What's in the barn?" "Dust, broken tools, nothing worth stealing." The leader smiled wider. "Good, then you won't mind if we check." He started walking. Daniel moved in front of him. "This is private land." The rifles rose instantly. For one dangerous second, no one breathed. Then the leader chuckled. "A brave farmer. I like brave men." He stepped closer until their faces were only inches apart. But brave men die the same as cowards. Daniel could smell engine fuel on his clothes. He needed time, so he pointed toward the far field. "You're searching the wrong place," Daniel said. "An old cargo pod crashed there yesterday. Could be your signal." The scanner man turned the device. A stronger pulse suddenly appeared in the far field. Because Daniel had just activated a hidden battery beacon from the radio in his pocket, the mercenaries looked at one another. The leader frowned. "Take 2 men. Check it." 3 of them moved toward the fields. 2 stayed behind. The yard became quiet again. The leader studied Daniel carefully. "You lie too calmly." Daniel lifted the lantern. "And you ask too much." Before the man could answer, a scream came from the far field. Then another. The night exploded with bright smoke. Daniel's hidden flare traps burst from the ground, firing sparks and blinding light into the air. The mercenaries shouted in confusion. The 2 guards turned toward the noise. That was enough. Daniel swung the lantern into one guard's helmet. Glass shattered. Fire spread across the man's chest armor. He fell screaming. Daniel threw the shovel into the second guard's knees. The man crashed into the dirt. The leader reached for his weapon, but Daniel tackled him hard. They hit the ground and rolled through dry soil. The scarred man was stronger than he looked. He punched Daniel across the face and grabbed a knife. Before he could strike, a flash of blue light cut through the dark. The knife flew from his hand. The alien mother stood near the barn door, one hand raised, glowing with energy. Her children stood behind her, terrified. The leader stared at her with greedy eyes. "There you are," he whispered.
Status
He reached for
report.
a device
What
on his
happened?
belt.
Power
Daniel
failure
saw a
across
red
the
light
board.
blinking.
The collector
Beacon
weapons are
transmitter.
useless.
More
We're
hunters would
exposed.
come.
Get cover.
Daniel lunged forward and smashed it under his boot. The leader cursed and tried to run, but blue vines burst from the dry earth around his legs, wrapping him to the ground. The mother fell to one knee, weak from using her power. The yard became silent except for heavy breathing. The 2 surviving mercenaries dragged themselves away and ran to the vehicles. Engines roared. They fled into the night, leaving their leader trapped. Daniel stood over the scarred man. This farm had nothing, Daniel said. Now it has enemies. The man laughed through blood. You think this is over, farmer? He looked at the little girl near the barn. Now, everyone will know where she is. Daniel felt cold fear in his chest, because the man was right. The signal had been sent before it was crushed, and far above the clouds, something much larger began to move. The night after the attack felt colder than any winter Daniel could remember. The mercenary leader was tied inside the storage shed, with steel chains from Daniel's old tractor. The damaged vehicles were gone. The dust on the road had settled. The farm looked quiet again. But Daniel knew quiet could lie. Above the clouds, danger was already moving. He stood outside the barn and watched the stars. One bright point in the sky was not a star. It moved slowly, then stopped. A ship, waiting. Inside the barn, a soft light glowed through the cracks. Daniel opened the door carefully. The three children sat together on blankets near a small heater. They looked tired, but safe. The oldest child was helping the middle one drink warm water.
Okay, put it right
For the
there in the
first
middle.
time since arriving, they were not shaking
You sure
from hunger.
did, buddy.
The
Good
smallest
job.
girl sat alone near the wall. Blue sparks danced around her fingers. She laughed quietly as the sparks became tiny glowing birds, flying in circles before turning into drops of light. Daniel stared. The child looked up and quickly hid her hands behind her back. I'm sorry,
Dad.
she whispered.
I'm okay.
He stepped closer. You did nothing wrong. The alien mother stood from the
Leora, I am
corner
so
and moved between them.
relieved. It's okay,
She must
Mom.
not use it openly,
here.
the
Go
mother
ahead,
said.
eat up.
Please. Daniel looked at the
It's
little
so
girl again.
good, Father.
Her face was thin, but
best
her eyes
meal
were
ever.
bright like morning sky after rain. What is her name? He asked. The mother hesitated, then answered. Leora. The girl gave a shy smile. Daniel nodded once. I'm Daniel. Leora repeated it softly as if testing the word. Danielle. Her brothers giggled. A strange warmth touched the room. Then it was gone. The bright point outside the barn window moved lower.
Okay,
Daniel
just like
turned
that.
serious.
Give us some room to grow.
Tell me the truth,
I
he said to the mother. Why
Nice
are they
job.
really
High five.
chasing her? The mother's face changed. She sat slowly beside the children and spoke in a low voice. Long ago, our people learned to guide life energy. We could heal forests, clean poisoned water, and grow food where nothing lived. Daniel glanced at the green shoots still growing through cracks in the barn floor. But during the war, she continued, others forced gifted children to power weapons. Entire cities burned because of children too young to understand what they were doing. Daniel's jaw tightened. And Leora? The mother looked at her daughter with fear and love. She was born stronger than any child we have seen in generations. The room became silent. Leora
We can
lowered
hold
her
them here,
head,
by the
not
river.
fully
The flank is
understanding.
exposed.
Daniel
We need
asked the
aerial
question he
support.
feared
The
most.
radio is our only option.
Can she be
This wire
used as a
should boost the
weapon?
signal enough.
The mother's
Carefully
eyes
align
filled
the
with
wire
pain.
right there.
Yes.
See the groove?
I
Leora's
got it,
tiny
Dad.
sparks
It's
disappeared.
blinking.
The
That's my
child
girl.
looked at her own hands
Perfect
like they
connection.
were dangerous. Daniel crouched in front of her. Listen to me, he said gently. Power does not choose who you are. You choose. She looked into his eyes. Even if others are scared of me, especially then. For the first time, the girl smiled with real trust.
Greetings, travelers.
A loud metal bang
come a
shook the
long way.
barn. Everyone
We
jumped.
followed the
Another
rumors of
bang
green.
from the storage shed.
Never seen
The
anything like
prisoner.
it.
Daniel
the
grabbed
tools
his
you
rifle
requested.
and ran outside. He reached the shed and
Excellent.
opened the door.
Our harvest
The
was
scarred
bountiful this
mercenary
season,
stood
thanks to the
inside,
new
still
irrigation.
chained but
I
smiling.
won't tell you everything
He had
we
kicked
saw
over
out there.
tools and broken
But when the
shelves.
storms hit,
Need attention?
the only thing
Daniel
that mattered
asked.
was the
The
warmth
man
of this
laughed.
fire.
Need to warn you. Daniel said nothing. The mercenary leaned forward. The ship above you isn't mine. A chill moved through Daniel's body. Then whose? The smile faded. Collectors. Daniel had never heard the word, but he hated it immediately. They buy rare technology, rare creatures, rare children, alive if possible. Daniel's grip tightened on the rifle. How long? The mercenary looked toward the sky through the shed window. Not long. Daniel slammed the door shut
Warning,
and locked it
perimeter
again.
breach detected.
He ran back
Seek
to the
shelter
barn.
immediately.
We leave
turrets are
before
online,
dawn,
Daniel.
he said.
Good. Now
The
get
mother
behind the
stood.
barrier, quickly.
We cannot outrun a ship. Then we hide where scanners fail. He pointed toward the northern hills. Old mining tunnels, deep stone, no signal. The oldest boy looked afraid. Will they find us? Daniel answered before the mother could speak. Not if we move now. They packed quickly. Bread, water, blankets, batteries. Leora held a small wooden toy Daniel found in the
demand the
house.
child and the
It had
miracle
once
land.
belonged to
Yield
his
them
son.
now.
He
Your
almost
demands
took
mean
it back,
nothing here, Commander.
but he didn't.
We refuse.
Outside, the wind grew stronger. Dust swirled across the yard. Above them, the bright ship light separated into 3 smaller lights descending through the clouds. Landing craft, too fast. The mother's face turned pale. "They are here!" Daniel led the family toward the old truck near the fence. The engine coughed once, twice, then died. One of the mercenaries had damaged it before fleeing. A beam of white light suddenly struck the far field, then another. The farm glowed like daytime. Voices echoed from the sky through speakers.
I can't believe it.
Surrender
It
the
actually
child,
stopped them.
and no one else
safe.
will be harmed.
We're safe. Look at
The
the
children
sparks.
cried out and held their
Fire
mother.
all batteries.
Daniel looked
Destroy
at the
that
frightened
shield.
faces around
It's
him.
too much. I can't
Then
hold it.
at the dead land.
Leora,
Then
stop.
at
You're
the
gonna
sky.
kill yourself.
He made his choice. He handed the rifle to the mother. "Take the children to the tunnels." She stared at him. "What about you?" Daniel walked toward the open yard, alone. "I'm going to make them believe the child never existed." The white beams from the sky burned
moving,
across
don't
the
look back.
fields like
Faster.
giant knives.
Hurry,
Dust
grab my
rose
hand.
in long waves as 3 landing craft lowered over Daniel's farm. Their engines screamed
Stay
through the
sharp,
night
everyone.
and shook every
We
board
rescue
of the
who we
old
can
house.
and we bring them home.
Daniel walked
Let's
alone
show them
into
our
the center
courage.
of the yard. Behind him, hidden by darkness, the alien mother led her children toward the northern path. The rifle was in her hands now. The children moved fast, but fear slowed their steps.
They're
He
gone.
needed time. Nothing more. Just time.
It's
The
finally
first
over.
landing craft touched the
We are
ground near the
safe.
broken water tower. Its metal
Victoria.
doors opened with a hiss. Tall figures in silver armor stepped out.
Gracias a
Their
los
helmets
héroes.
had no faces, only
We
black
finally made
glass.
it back.
They carried long
Thank you,
weapons that
Daniel.
glowed with
I
cold
can
blue
rest now.
lines. Collectors. They moved with perfect control, like machines trained to hunt. One figure came forward. Unlike the others, this one wore a dark coat over armor. A thin
These are
gold
the
mark
seeds we
crossed
brought.
the chest plate.
We have enough for the
Clearly
whole
the leader.
field.
A mechanical voice
Thank you,
came from the
sister.
helmet.
The harvest
Human
will be
farmer,
bountiful this
step
year.
aside.
Look at them
Daniel did not move.
fly.
This is
Wow,
private
they are
land.
so
The soldiers
pretty.
raised their weapons.
Look, one
The leader
landed
tilted
right
his
here.
head. Your species always says that before losing. Daniel looked around the yard, pretending fear. In truth, his mind was counting distance,
Why now?
timing, and weak points. The fuel tank near the barn,
After everything
the old
that happened,
grain
you think a
silo
crate
cables,
changes anything.
the dry trench beside the tractor path. He had worked this land for years. Every dangerous corner belonged to him. "There is no child here," Daniel said.
everyone.
The leader lifted one hand.
wonderful
A
harvest
small drone
and
rose from
peace
behind the soldiers
among
and scanned the farm with red light. It paused over the barn, then over the house, then over the road leading north. The leader turned toward that road. Daniel's chest tightened.
More
Too
food
soon.
over
He
here.
grabbed a shovel lying nearby
Careful,
and threw it
don't
hard at
drop
the
it.
drone. The metal
This is the
tool
happiest
smashed
chaos
into
in the
it.
galaxy.
Sparks burst. The
These
drone
maps
spun
show the
wildly
ideal
and crashed
spots
into
for
the
the
fuel
rotation.
tank beside the
And when
barn.
we align it
1
with
second
these
later,
symbols, the
fire
yield
exploded
increases
across the yard.
significantly.
Heat rolled through the night. Flames climbed the barn wall and spread across the dry ground. The soldiers stepped
They're
back as smoke covered
beautiful.
everything. Daniel ran. Blaster shots tore through the darkness behind him. He jumped into the trench near the tractor path just as blue energy burned the soil above his head. The farm became a battlefield. Collectors advanced through smoke in 2 groups. One moved toward the road. The other searched for Daniel. He crawled through the trench and reached a hidden control box near the irrigation pump. The system had not worked for crops in years, but water still remained in emergency tanks underground. He slammed the switch. Old pipes groaned. Then powerful streams of muddy water burst from broken sprinklers across the yard, hitting flames, armor, and search sensors. Steam filled the air. The soldiers' lights flickered. Daniel smiled grimly. Now they were fighting blind. He rushed from the trench and
Master
pulled the
Daniel,
release chain
welcome.
beside the grain
The
silo.
harvest is
The rusted
bountiful this
support
cycle.
cables
Look out,
snapped.
I'm gonna
A
catch
mountain of
you.
stored metal
95
scrap
fly
and broken
first.
machine parts
And as you
crashed
can
down
see, the
onto 2
atomic
advancing
structure of this
soldiers,
hybrid grain
burying
allows
them
it to
under twisted
thrive
steel.
in the vertical
The leader
gardens.
fired at
Wow,
Daniel,
look at it
hitting the tractor
spin.
behind him. The machine exploded, throwing him across the dirt. Pain shot through his shoulder. He tried to rise. A boot pressed against his chest. The leader stood over him, weapon aimed at his face. "You waste effort," the mechanical voice said. "Where is the child?"
To friendship,
Daniel coughed
family,
blood and smiled.
many more nights like
Learning to
this.
farm, the leader's weapon charged. Then a bright blue wave hit the soldier from the side. The collector flew backward through the smoke. Daniel looked up. The alien mother stood near the burning fence, one hand glowing like a star. The rifle hung unused at her side. Her children hid behind rocks near the road. She had come back. "You should have run," Daniel shouted. "And leave you?" she answered. More soldiers rushed toward her. She touched the ground. Roots burst from dead soil, wrapping around armored legs. Dry earth cracked open, swallowing weapons. Green vines climbed helmets and pulled enemies down. The farm itself had joined the fight, but each use of power made her weaker. She dropped to one knee. The leader rose again from the dirt, damaged but active. He pulled a spear from his belt and threw it toward the children. Daniel saw the blinking red light. Grenade. He ran without thinking. He dove across the ground and grabbed it. There was no time to throw it far enough. Leora stepped forward. Her small hands lifted. The grenade stopped in the air. Red light turned blue. Then the metal sphere opened like a flower and became harmless dust. Everyone froze. The child floated inches above the ground, surrounded by shining energy. Her eyes glowed brighter than the landing craft lights. Dry fields around the farm changed in seconds. Grass spread,
The symbol
flowers
of
opened,
one choice
trees pushed from cracked earth.
remains
Life
forever.
moved like a wave across the dead land. The remaining soldiers stepped back in fear. The leader whispered one word: "Impossible." Leora looked at him, not with anger, but with sadness. Then a pulse of light burst from her hands. Every weapon on the field shut down instantly. Landing craft engines died. Helmets went dark. Silence fell. The child collapsed. Her mother caught her. Daniel stood slowly, breathing hard. The collectors, now powerless, retreated into the dark with their injured leader. They had come to steal power. Instead, they had witnessed something greater. As dawn touched the horizon, green fields moved in the wind around the broken farm. For the first time in years, the land was alive. But in Daniel's arms, Leora was unconscious, and no one knew if she would wake again.